Hello and welcome to Life with Francy podcast, a place you will find all kinds of conversations like mental health, self love, self care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a community where we support one another and to get to the next level in personal or business life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get this show started. On this episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Neat, who wrote a children's book series on mental health to help spread mental health awareness. He is a physician, so the book are from a medical perspective. I don't have kids yet, but I know a lot of my listeners do. And well, I'm interested in his perspective when it comes to kids' mental health. Welcome me to my show. So tell us, what is life with you?
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, life since the pandemic, I'm sure just like with everyone else, it's been a, a big change, right? And especially
Yeah.
in the mental health realm, there's such a need for a mental health awareness now. With the pandemic, there's more and more patients with suffering from mental illnesses that's coming into the clinic, from kids to adults. So there's just such a disparity that I really wanted to do something to help educate the public, help start conversation, even at home. I think with my philosophy for mental health, it should be like your physical health where we should be proactive rather than reactive. Sometimes I feel like a lot of us we wait for something to happen and become reactive and try and just we're already behind the ball. So as opposed to that, I think it would be better just like your physical health to be proactive, like you exercise and eat right for your physical health. I think you should kind of learn more about mental health and some skills before things happen. So then when it does happen, you are aware of it and know how to manage it properly.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's why I wanted you on the show because I say mental health is my jam. Like, I talk everything about mental health. I want to be known as a mental health advocate. And like I mentioned, I don't have kids, but I do like the perspective for the ones that do because I know that our mental health as an adult is important. And
Yes.
sometimes we can even handle the things that life throws at us, but then we expect a little kid to
Yeah,
manage their emotions and their feelings.
exactly. Yeah, so I think a lot of times there's I feel like parents don't talk to their kids a lot about mental health for the exact reason that they are not familiar with that much mental health themselves. So I feel like it's a difficult topic to discuss because they feel like they're not that comfortable themselves. So I feel like that's one of the main reasons why it doesn't really get talked, discussed in the household. And even for families that have suffered from mental health, I feel like there's this like almost like a embarrassment to kind of talk about it. So I
Hmm.
feel like by making it more into a story format, it's easier to start a dialogue between the parents and the kids about mental health because it's not so much cut and dry. This is depression, this is anxiety, this is such and such. As opposed to you can kind of talk about the characters and what they're feeling, what they're going through, and kind of segue that into like, oh, so have you felt similar symptoms? And so these are some strategies. So for my books, at the end of the books, I do give some more information about each medical condition or mental health condition, things to look out for, things where to get more information, and things, some tips on what to do as well. So I feel like it'll be a great starting point for parents who don't feel comfortable talking to their kids about mental health. Have the kids read that and then kind of just read it themselves and have that conversation with their kids uh, when it's not so awkward because you're able to have something to talk about.
Yeah, and so tell us how was the journey to get to that book?
Honestly, I think a lot of doctors have a very unique perspective because the patients kind of tell us their deep deepest and darkest thoughts and concerns. So I see their point of view and I see from a medical point of view. But unfortunately, I think most doctors are so busy, we don't really get around to kind of turn it into something that is more digestible for the public. So I think storytelling is the most powerful way to relay a message. I mean, that's how our ancestors passed on, the traditions and stories just through storytelling. So that's why I wanted to do something that's more digestible for the public and um, kind of a more lighthearted instead of so such a in other words, more like a downer when it comes to mental health. I think want to make it more lighthearted, something to kind of discuss and uh, have that open dialogue.
I absolutely love that because it's true. I mean, as a doctor, you're seeing so many patients a day that if you see an issue, it's not like you can give that much time to explain to them. So I love that you have created this resource pretty much for somebody that to just go and purchase it and have the information there.
Yeah, so the story is it's a book. My series is 8 books long. Each
Okay.
book will actually touch on a different mental health issue, and again, at the end, we'll give more resources, more information about certain topics. Um, I use actually my own stories as well as the stories of my patients that kind of stuck with me through the years. Could kind of mesh it together into a a story that's more digestible. Um, so each book will touch on a different topic. For example, the first book will discuss bullying and with the consequences of bullying and what it can do to you mentally, not just physically, and the how it can affect the individual, from childhood all the way through adulthood, and just give more information to the public for even for kids who are bullying people and see that the damage that they can be causing. And then the second
Yeah.
book will touch on learning disabilities. I think a lot of it we kind of push to the side and not talk about it much, but that's definitely a real thing and cause again a lot of stress on children who are having these conditions. And sometimes it's caught really really late because you know we all sometimes you kind of push it off and think that they're just being lazy, they're not trying hard. But I think sometimes you're missing the whole situation.
Yeah, no, 100%. I am 34, and just a few months ago, I did my mental health evaluation,
Mm.
and I came up with 6 diagnoses in mental health, like severe depression, moderate to severe anxiety, codependency, PTSD, and things like that. That would have helped me out a lot if I knew that in my younger years.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I think that's why I wanted to just touch on topics that normally wouldn't get touched on. Um, you know, like I talked about other people that you learn a lot in school. You learn about math, science, um, English, history, music, but then even sex ed. But nowhere in our education system we learn anything about mental health, right? Yes, I feel like it could be a very useful tool to kind of discuss in the classroom as well to help bring that awareness and start that conversation in the classroom so you can transfer that to the home.
Yeah, no, I love that. So you said 8 books
Mhm.
you have out?
I'm I finished with 8 books, but they're releasing them slowly. So book three, so book one's about bullying. Book two is about learning disabilities. Book three is actually very um, near and dear subject to me. It's actually about grit. So how to deal with failures. A lot of kids these days are under so much stress. They feel like they always have to succeed, and if they don't accomplish anything, they're a total failure. So I just want to touch on that subject where actually the one of a very renowned psychologist, she did a study on what makes a kid succeed. in life, like as from a child to adult. So the one key ingredient is not talent, it's not intelligence, it's not like IQ, it's not innate ability, it's actually grit. So the
Mm.
kids with the highest amount of grit are the ones that will most likely succeed. And it's not the one that's the most talented or the smartest ones. I think the one that are the grittiest. And what's nice about that is that grit can be learned, can be taught, can be, cultivated. So it's not something that you have it or you don't.
So, so now you're saying like, 'cause you said greed.
Grit, grit,
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Grit, grit. Grittiness.
Okay,
So
okay.
grittiness is the ability to, simple definition, grittiness is the ability to get up after every failure, learn from your mistakes, and take the next step forward in your journey.
I'm interested just because I have never heard of it. That's
Yeah,
why I'm like, okay, so what do you mean? And now what you explain it, I can relate to that. That's why I was like, because I never heard of it before.
yeah. So grittiness, like I said, it's a skill that can be learned, and like I said, can be cultivated. So as long as the child's in an environment where they're able to fail not and have the support of their families, their friends, and the teachers, then they can take giant steps to move forward instead of like they fail a test, you're like, you're worthless, you failed a test, take this test over again, and have that kind of stigma that they're such a failure. Whereas greenness, I think if you spin it where they have a more supportive environment, like, oh, okay, you failed that test, let's look at what tripped you up and how you can learn from that and do better the next test. It's a change in language that can build up a child's greediness instead of this kind of destroying their self-esteem if they fail at something, like if they lose a game or anything, where you kind of spin the language where you're like, you know what, okay, this is what happened, how can we learn from that, how can you improve, how can we not make that same mistake again the next time. So in that type of environment, that's how you build grittiness.
Wow. Yeah, no, I'm mind blown just for myself because I have been so hard on myself through my life
Mhm.
because of all of the mistake, all of the failures. But what my friend sees is determination. They're like, oh, you're like the most determined woman that I know. It doesn't matter what comes at you. You're like, okay, that happened. Slow down. Let's see how we can make it better or how can we can fix it. So like now I'm excited that I have failed so much in my life. Now it all makes sense thanks to you.
Yeah, so actually, this is not my study. It's Dr. Duckworth. She's actually a very, really world renowned for her research in this. So yeah, definitely. I think it's just a change in our language can really cultivate that greediness in kids. We live in a society where we kind of uh have so much weight on prize, like, oh, you got first place or you got second place. We put so much emphasis on that there, that sometimes if we don't attain those goals, we feel like we totally failed, right?
Yeah.
Like even in school, like, okay, you gotta get straight A's, you gotta do this, you gotta get good scores in your test, and then if you don't achieve that, like, we don't really live in a society where you're like, okay, let's learn from that. It's more like, oh, you failed, you suck, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%.
So that's why it's just a matter of changing that perspective, to allow kids to fail and to allow them to learn, and that's how they make improvements, in whatever goals they're trying to accomplish. If they're allowed to fail, if you put just like a goal of just making doing X, Y, and Z, if you don't accomplish it, then that's it, you're done. I feel like that's such a negative approach to creating like productive adults. So that's why I said
Yeah.
this topic is so near and dear to me. I really want to have parents kind of read this and kind of learn from it and understand too. And so when dealing with the kids, they can kind of help create that grittiness in their children instead of kind of making them feel like they're disappointing them.
Hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. My mom is like the best mom ever, but I always felt like a disappointment. So changing the way you speak and the perspective on your child, like that will make such a huge difference because just with this conversation today, I'm like, wow, if I would have known, if my mom would have known this information when I was a kid, there would have been so much pressure. Because
Yeah,
when it comes to education too, there's a huge talk because school really doesn't teach you anything productive for a grown-up world,
yeah,
and then your parents put that expectation on you that you have to have good grades and you just have to get it. But
yeah.
there's so many different ways on learning. You learn by visual, you learn by writing. And
Hmm.
I didn't know the way I learned into my 20s or 30s, that is by writing. If I write anything down, it stays in my head.
Hmm.
So just little things like that that will help so much to feel like, to make your child feel like he or she is like the best in the world instead
Yeah,
of like a failure for not meeting the world society's expectation.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think that's why I include that topic just to kind of show that you're if allowed to, the child can be extremely successful if you allow them to fail, allow them to learn. So, like I said, that's book three. Book four will touch on anxiety and panic attacks. I feel like kids nowadays have so much going on, so much stimulation. I feel like they're in a world that's just constantly moving. I would see more anxiety in kids these days, so I wanted to touch on that topic and kind of go over signs and symptoms that they may be feeling or experiencing, and kind of relating that to what it possibly could be, such as panic attacks and anxiety.
Yeah, that is great because it can look to like ADHD and things like that because they're so I can't say the word, but like they move a lot and then they feel like they can't breathe or
Yeah,
anything like that, and it's just anxiety over a test, anxiety over something going on at home, for so many things. I was introduced to anxiety when I was 9, but my real panic attack was like later on. And so I have a soft spot for people and kids that deal with anxiety and panic attacks because when you're in the danger zone, there's no logic. So how would you like deal with it, when it comes to a kid?
yeah. So actually, the story, book four actually goes through with you go through a character and how she experiences anxiety and panic attacks. So you kind of see what it is, how it is to have anxiety, what it is they're feeling, and you kind of deep dive into their head and see what's going on. So I think having that character to relate to, you're like, oh, okay, that's what she's experiencing. Oh, that's what I was experiencing. So something more relatable that they can relate to and kind of make themselves more aware. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what I'm feeling. This is what it could potentially be. So then they would, go talk, ask the parents or talk to the teacher. Maybe go, then they can be taken to the doctor. So I think just make them more aware that they're not like, oh, maybe I'm just feeling something off, and make them more aware, hey, it could be something else. I should talk to my parent or talk to my teacher or talk to my doctor about it.
Yeah, great. And then book 5?
And book five moves to a different character. She's a new kid in the school. She's dealing with a separation with her newly separated parents, and she's just going through a bad depression, and her friends kind of help her through it. But basically, again, same thing, kind of deep dive into what it is to have depression, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. So again, I think this is more helpful for parents to kind of look for signs to see maybe my child's acting a certain way, I should really maybe recognize the signs of a depression. I think that would be a very helpful for a parent's perspective to kind of catch it as well if they haven't um, dealt with depression themselves or haven't had any family
Hmm.
members, so they're not familiar, signs and symptoms to look out for. So I think that would be a very helpful book for the kids and the parents too.
Yeah, I think the generation before me, so my parents, they didn't have the tools and resources to deal with stuff, so they wouldn't call it the same thing. Like now, I know that my mom uh, had depression, but I didn't know that that was what it's called. So they're like disconnected
Hmm.
from feelings and emotions because you just have to deal with life. You go to work, you come home, and you take care of the kids.
Yeah,
So it might be a little bit harder to notice the little things. And if you haven't dealt with it yourself, it's
yeah,
like really
exactly.
hard to see the signs. So I love that you write a book with a character so they can notice the
Yeah.
signs.
Yeah, like I said, I think storytelling is the most powerful way to relay a message because it evokes emotion. So emotions, you remember emotions. You don't remember like details, the little details of things. I think emotions is what you remember.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
So then book six, I transition to something that's I think it's very important these days with all the internet access is internet safety. So one in that book, one of the characters he makes friends with someone online, and he thought it was someone his age, but it turns out it wasn't. So it's just kind of displaying how um, someone online can be very manipulative. Can be it's a very dangerous situation where you really have to practice safe internet precautions. So I think that one kind of just I just want to make kids kind of more aware. Sometimes they feel like they're invincible and they're like, I don't know, my parents don't know what they're talking about, and it's fine. So it's kind of just bring to light where certain things can happen that they may not be aware.
Wow, yeah. That's a great topic as well.
Yeah. Then book seven, I actually address what's going on in our society in general with all the discrimination that's going on. So it basically touches on you know why discrimination happened because it's basically just not knowing. Right? A lot of it's kind of ignorance on both ends, so I think that causes a lot of discrimination. So that book kind of brings to light, when the character's parents learns from himself that what he thought about a different group is actually completely wrong until he actually runs into that group himself and actually receives help from that certain group. So I think I don't want to give away the whole book, but basically he just learns that his perception all along was incorrect, and he never opened himself up to learn the other perspective. So I think that's why I want to bring to light how we all can help fight discrimination by just being well open, learning about different cultures, and seeing that at the end of the day we're all the same. We all go home to our family. We want to raise our kids. I think, and, no one goes home and you know um, want to uh, have this intention that we're gonna go out and do this bad things to other people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just want to relay the message that at the end of the day, we all go home. We all want to spend time with family. We all love our family. We all want to do X, Y, and Z. And at the end of the day, we do things a little bit differently, but we all have the same end goal.
Hmm. Yeah. So then book eight.
So book eight, well, it's a topic that again is another topic that's um, I hold dearly, is dealing with the loss of a loved one.
Wow.
Uh, I think even as kids, parents don't really talk to their kids about what it is to lose a family member, do with and what it is, what death is. So book The book eight will actually kind of go through one of the characters losing his grandma, and go through his grieving process, and just give me more information on how it is to grieve, and what the process of grievings are, and how to help your child through that process, instead of um, kind of just brushing it off and saying, oh, grandma or grandpa, they're just sleeping, they're resting. I think it's more it's more harmful to talk about it that way. I think, a lot of the other psychiatrists, psychologists say, gotta just be more upfront with their kids, actually explain to them what death is, and kind of help them grieve and move forward. If you keep saying, oh yeah, you know, put things so like flowery, they don't really understand what death actually means, right? I think sometimes you gotta say, you know what, grandma, she's not breathing anymore. Her body is not, heart's not working. She's not, no longer moving. That this is death. Like her body, she is no longer here.
Yeah, that book I wanted for myself because my first real death was like, well, the one that I remember that shocked me the most. I was 9 years old. It was with a cousin. And well, my family doesn't know, still in their 40s and 50s, they really don't know how to deal with grieving. So, and I learned myself in my 30s. So I'm learning a lot in my 30s. And it was it's a good topic because it's uncomfortable for a lot of people,
Mhm.
because a lot of people don't even know how to even start the process, or that there is even a process,
Yeah,
because they think that like by a week or a month or a year you should be forgotten, or a
yeah,
decade. And
yeah,
it's not like that. This is a process for life.
yeah. So, like I said, it's a topic that I know hold dear. I lost my grandma when I was at 17. That was the first person that I was like really, really close to that died. And I didn't even know how to grieve. I kind of kept it inside, and it it ate me up. So that's why I wanted to write something to help kids, like, this is the process of grieving. You should grieve, and then you should talk about it, talk about with your family, talk about with your parents, talk about with your cousins, or the more you talk about it, the more you can kind of grieve, as opposed to just holding all in, and just it will just eat you up inside.
Yeah. um yeah. And on that note, I want to say I don't have kids, but my friend is a mom, and right now she's dealing with the trauma of her kids losing their dad, because it's a boy and a girl, and the girl has anxiety, the girl has anger issues, and a lot of things. And one thing that has stuck with me that she told her is like, give me your big feelings, give me your emotions, mommy will handle it, because you can't. So that will be my advice for parents. That was great. I was like, wow, Gail, you get an A+ on that one, because little kids, adults don't know how to deal with their feelings and emotions.
Mhm.
So it was so relieving for her that her tantrums at school like stop, because she knows now that all she has to do if she's feeling any type of way is just to call mom, and mom will take care of the feelings and emotions, and she just can vent it out,
Mhm.
because sometimes kids just want to let it out.
Yeah,
And in her process is through grieving by losing her dad at when she was 5.
yeah, no, that's tough.
Yes. But yeah, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And anywhere that my listeners can find you.
Yeah, so you can go through my website, kind of collect the series if you like. It's on www.theventuresofmaxandfriends.org, or you can Google the Ventures of Max and Friends, and my website should come up. But yeah, it will have all my books on there and when the release or dates available. And there's my contact information. If you want to contact me, any more questions or concerns, you can also message me through there as well. So, like I said, this it's supposed to be just something to start a dialogue between your parents and their kids. If you have kids that you want to talk to them, you don't feel comfortable, maybe get them to start reading that book, having that dialogue, being more proactive rather than reactive. Don't wait till everything falls apart before you react.
I love that. And your mission is really, really important. So thank you so much for what you do.
No problem.
And I will have all his information on the show notes. Thank you again for coming,
No
sharing your
problem.
mission, sharing your message. It means the world to me. Like you made my day. This is
Great.
really important because I have a soft spot, for little kids because I was a child that was misunderstood. So all of these resources and your stories will have helped my mom so much to deal with me.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that is my whole intention, to give more resources for parents who are struggling, who don't know what to do. Just for them to start their get some more information that's easier to digest, more palatable to for the kids as well. So, this is hopefully the beginning of this health awareness.
Love it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode. Hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Till next time, hope you have a blessed day.